YouTube, welcome back to my channel. So today we are here to talk about your acrylic liquid to powder ratio. Side note, happy Thanksgiving to all of my Canadian viewers. I am Canadian and today there is a Thanksgiving dinner going on at my house. But I decided that I needed to scoot to the salon and I needed to film this because I've been thinking about it for a few days and I just feel like we don't talk about the logistics of the nail much anymore, not like we used to. We see the nail as a platform for art now, and I feel like we've gotten away from the structure and the integrity of the artificial nail and of the natural nail, and I want to bring that back a little bit. Really quick talk, and then we are going to jump over to some footage that I filmed yesterday of the too wet, too dry, and good product ratio. So if you catch me looking, I've got some notes in my hand. I couldn't remember this all to make sure I got all my talking points out there, so here we go. So when your bead is too dry, it's almost like making a cake with not enough wet ingredients. Everything is crumbly, it causes product breakdown. Monomer is what holds everything together. So when your product is too dry, you have lifting, you have weakness, and you have bubbles in your nail. So if you're doing, your bubbles wouldn't affect you if you're polishing over, of course, but if you're doing a French and you have the bubbles, you don't want those. And that comes from being too dry. So when your ratio is too wet, your monomer links everything together like a big hug. So when there's too much monomer, they almost hug too tight, and then you get a lot of shrinkage. So this is where you get your pocket lifting. I've seen just a couple of people recently talking about pocket lifting on one of the nail tech pages, and that's kind of what got me rolling on all of this, because there was lots of reasons there for pocket lifting from other techs and instructors and educators. No one said that perhaps your mix ratio is too wet, which also leads to perhaps your room is too cold. It depends on where you are, but right now the weather is getting colder in Canada, in parts of Canada, most of Canada, or most of North America, and we need to be able to have a consistent temperature in the salon. This does affect how your acrylic dries. So if your product is too wet, it's potential lifting, it's pocket lifting, it's excessive shrinkage, it's also overexposure for both you and your client. When the product is too wet, you have it running into the sidewalls and running into the cuticle, which is where you get your lifting, but it's also where your client receives too much of this monomer. It's touching them and it's not supposed to. So this is where sometimes allergies crop up. Having your bead too wet is also going to extend your curing time. So when you're coming back through to finish file the nail and it's still gummy or what have you, I mean, that's a huge issue. You can't have that happening. That does happen as well sometimes when the room is way too cold. Same as when the room is way too hot. It will give you the same symptoms as too dry of a bead. So when your bead is perfect, when you have the right mix ratio, you have excellent retention, you have proper set and cure times, you are eliminating the overexposure to the client, and you have clarity in the nail. So, I mean, we could talk about mixing and matching powders and liquids. You're just not supposed to do that. There's multiple reasons why. One of the reasons is all of these things. There's catalysts, there's initiators, all within your powders and your liquids, and they're meant to go together. They're manufactured to go together. So when you're using one powder and one liquid, they're not mashing right. You're not getting the proper ingredients. You're not getting the proper catalysts and initiators, and it can cause problems. It might not cause problems that you see, but every third client might be coming back with 4 broken nails. You don't know what's going on. Well, it could just be that your products don't go together, and this is one of the many things that can happen when they don't. So if you haven't subscribed yet, I really hope you do, and if this video has helped you in any way, I would love it if you gave it a thumbs up. That is how people like me are able to keep creating here on YouTube. If you have any questions about mixed ratio, I didn't get into the entire amount of information that I have. If you have any questions about mixed ratio, pop them down below. I'd love to start a conversation about this because I feel like we're not talking about it enough. Thanks so much for watching. Happy Thanksgiving, and I hope you're having a wonderful fall.
Okay, everybody, so this is our little demo of the beads that I make with the Too Wet, Too Dry, and Just Right. We're using the CND opaque powder. We're using all CND products here, except for my brush, which is Light Elegance number 8. I don't know what size of brushes you all use, but I'd love to know in the comments. So I'm using my funny little swatches here. I had never seen these before. And I ordered them thinking they were the singles, and this is the way they came, so kind of cool, but I hadn't actually ever seen them. So I'm trying to pick up a bead here, and it's funny, I'm trying to pick up a Too Wet bead first, and it's not going well because I just am not used to it, right? I'm not used to flubbing up on purpose, so it took me a second to get into this here, but this is our bead that's too wet. So when you lay that down, it sticks to your brush, it doesn't release, it kind of goes everywhere, and even after I give it a minute, it still won't go, like it still won't push, it won't move, sticking to my brush. So this is like non-salvageable. I feel like there's a little teeny tiny gray area where it might be salvageable. This is not within this area. So now we're going to come into a bead that is too dry, and it's basically doing all of the same things in the opposite direction. I can pick it up, same as the bead that was too wet. It's hard to lay down, sticks to my brush. These ones here I feel like are the brush killers because they get right in there. Actually, I'm ready to trade this brush out, and it's kind of got some hairs that are sticking out all over the place, and I thought, oh, I shouldn't film with this brush because it doesn't look that great. But I went ahead and filmed with it anyway, just in case anything got stuck in it, because I don't want to ruin a new brush. So if you even need to stop and replay this again of how I'm picking up the good bead, because there's a way about it that just becomes second nature to you, and I feel like that's where I'm at with it. So I lay that down, it fully releases, nothing stays on my brush, and you can see how that's turning into almost like melted butter. It gets a little bit opaque. I know that I'm very sorry that it's a little bit hard to see here, but it gets a little bit opaque. It's not clear, it's not crystallizing. It turns into a nice little round bubble, and then it is perfect. So I'm going to pick up another swatch and try it again. And it's kind of all in the way it releases. When you lay it down and it just lets go and turns itself into a perfect little spot of melted butter. And then when you have control of movement like I'm going to with this bead, that is how you know it's the one and only love for you. Okay, thanks guys. I'm so glad that you watched through to the end of this. If you have any comments, pop them down below. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. I appreciate it so very much, and I would like to know what you would like to see from me next. Have a great weekend.